Good evening. Welcome to another session of the Sea of Glass. Tonight we're going to the book of Ezekiel, and you're going to see about adultery. I really want to bring adultery to the point of, that adultery is not a sin of the flesh. It's a sin of the spirit. And it's not what Christianity has made up or anybody in the world made up. This is not the same adultery. We're talking about spiritual value here. We're not talking about the understanding of flesh. If you want to read about flesh, you go get a netlist book somewhere and you read about it. But this is different. The Bible is something that consider a spirit. And the adultery, you see, it tells you here that the adultery, Jerusalem has an adulterous wife. That means that the understanding of what people made out of the Bible is adulterous. You know what adultery and spiritual is? To worship a human being before the Lord, to worship a pope, to worship anything that you worship outside the truth. God is the truth, and there's only one God. There's no Jesus, there's no Muhammad. All of these things are adulterous. If you leave the center of intelligence to believe anything that's outside the truth, then you have an adulterous mind. And that's what the Bible is all about, because the Bible tells you the understanding of this great power that we have inside ourselves to understand the truth. You got to understand that God the Father is the truth. That's the Father of all intelligence. Then the Son of God is not Jesus, but you got to understand that that's common sense. And you have to go through the Son to get to the Father. So we have inside of our heart the common sense of intelligence. And then the Holy Spirit into it is the understanding of reality. You got to match those three together in order for you to worship the one true God. This is what one true God is to worship the truth in the understanding of truth and only the truth. You see, like Christianity, all of religion teaches to worship Jesus. And they have all kinds of stuff about it. And then the Muslims believe they're Muhammad, and the Buddhists believe in Buddhists and all. So you have all kinds of different things that people call, in the understanding of their God. And it's not their God that's important. It's the understanding of truth. If you live inside the understanding of reality and truth, then you worship the one true God. If you don't worship the one true God. Go ahead, Rita, read something.
Okay, for you people following in your Bibles at home, we're back in the Old Testament under Ezekiel chapter 16, Jerusalem as an adulterous wife. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, confront Jerusalem with her detestable practices and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says to Jerusalem. Your ancestry and birth were in the land of the Canaanites. Your father was an Amorite and your mother a Hittite.
Okay. You got to understand the power here, that people in religion worship outside the truth. And they think they're on the Lord's side, but they're not on the Lord's side. If you want to be on the Lord's side, you have to be within the truth. You cannot step out of the truth and believe anything you want to believe. Even though you read it in the scriptures, you got to understand that the book does not talk about the flesh. And these people, they interpret the Bible in the way of flesh. You got to understand it in the word spiritual term. Adultery is to be able to understand. Now, they say that you have the moral. Your father has moral, and your mother has laws. So the mind, this is mind and spirit. See, Adam is the spirit, and Eve is the mind. So you have a father, and a mother in the understanding. But if you believe in the way that religion teaches the Bible, then you cannot understand what it means. And there's so many people that try to understand the Bible, but they don't understand it because they eat the unleavened bread. They don't eat the bread with yeast in it to understand the power of the scriptures, to understand the other side of it, what God meant by the scriptures. And adultery is a word in the Bible, a very powerful word in the Bible, but it's not about men and women having sex together. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's the understanding of the great power that you have inside yourself to understand adultery in the way of spiritual value, which is the great power. Now, the Lord is, God is the truth. And the Son is common sense. That's also part of the truth. And reality is also part of the truth. So you got to take those three together as one, and you got to bring them together in the understanding of the value of the truth. So you can't jump outside the truth and say, well, my God, you know what I mean? I read it in the Bible. If you cannot translate the Bible into spiritual term, put the book away, because you're only sinning against the Lord. The Lord is a great power to understand. Now, the sin that people think in the world it's not the same sin that's written in the Bible. The Ten Commandments are totally different in the understanding of spiritual value. So you got to understand that this one commandment, adultery, is, everybody thinks that adultery is when a man is married to a woman and he has sex with another woman. I tell you the truth, this is not what adultery is. The great power to understand the scriptures is to understand it in spiritual term, in the value. He tells you here that your spirit is full of mortal, and your mind is full of rules. See, you got to understand one thing about the mind. The mind only have loss and gain in it. So if you gain something, then your mind agrees with it. But if you lose something, then the mind don't agree with it. But the spirit is the one that makes the determination between reality and the truth, and the great power of yourself. You see, the music of intelligence that you have inside your heart is what makes sense. And if it don't make sense, don't believe it. And I don't care where is it written and what is it all about. It has to make sense in order to be the truth. The truth cannot have any kind of flipping stupidity or ignorance or false faith or anything else. It has to be within the center of intelligence. It has to be within the reason of common sense. It has to be within the reason of truth. And it has to be within the reason of the Holy Spirit, which is reality. If it's not real, it's not true. And I don't care what it is. You see, we have a whole bunch of religion out there that believe in all kinds of superstitions of all kinds, and they don't have it. They don't have it because they missed the mark, because they didn't translate the unleavened bread with yeast in it. And when you have no yeast in the bread, you're only reading the Bible as a book. You're not reading the Bible as your spirit. How to understand your feeling inside yourself with a spiritual power. Go ahead, Rita.
On the day you were born, your cord was not cut, nor were you washed with water to make you clean, nor were you rubbed with salt or wrapped in cloth. No one looked on you with pity or had compassion enough to do any of these things for you. Rather, you were thrown out into the open field, for on the day you were born, you were despised.
You see, you got to understand that your umbilical cord is not cut. In other words, you're still with the earth. You've got to come to understand and rise to the understanding of spirituality. If you don't come to a spiritual part of yourself to understand, you see, then your cord is not cut. You're still part of the earth. You still believe in the way the earth believes. You don't rise in the great power of the unleavened bread and the power of reason. You have to rise in intelligence in order to come to understand and to worship the Lord your God. You don't worship God like an animal. You worship God in spiritual. We have the understanding of this great power inside of us. You see, 6,000 years ago, God placed his spirit inside of an animal. But the animal remained, But then throughout the centuries and throughout the millenniums, 6,000 years of it, then we have learned to understand a little bit, but not enough. You really have to come to take the scriptures into spiritual term in order to understand every part of it. So you can come to understand that the glory of intelligence is inside of you, but it's a music of intelligence that leaves. See, once I read something like that, inside of me, there's a music of power there. you know, the cord has not been cut. The understanding of all the words. See, every word here has to have a translation into a spiritual term. And that's how you come to understand the power of the spiritual term and the value of spirit and spirit alone. So you can come to understand that Adam, you know, was not just the first man on earth, and Eve was not the first woman on earth. That's not what it is. You know, there's been the animal of humanity in the world for thousands and millions of years before now. So it's something that God said, okay, I'm going to bring a spiritual value and place it inside those animals, and they're going to learn to understand the way the power of the Lord is. See, God is intelligent. And in intelligence, you have this power to understand. It's better than more powerful than the animal. The animal understands the food he eats. He understands what he is. He understands his sexuality. He understands that. But you have to come to understand that the higher power of the divine power of the Lord. You see, this is where the Lord placed that inside of us 6,000 years ago. So we would come to see, time don't mean nothing. So we would come in time to understand the way God thinks. And man, I tell you, man, a step backward in all those 6,000 years of stupidity. You got to understand that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they were the first one to understand God in spiritual terms. And that's why you understand that you have to go to the throne of David. David understood. So that's why we come from the King of Israel, which is the understanding of a value above what the animal understands. You see, right now what religion preaches out there is the value of the animal. They have to come to this higher purpose of human thinking inside of ourselves so we can come to understand that there's the higher value. And that higher value is inside of us so we can really come to understand what the Lord is. Go ahead, Rita.
Then I passed by and saw you kicking about in your blood. As you lay there in your blood, I said to you, live. I made you grow like a plant of the field. You grew up and developed and became the most beautiful of jewels. Your breasts were formed and your hair grew. You who were naked and bare.
You got to understand the power of this. This is the scriptures now that you come to understand. Now, you know, take the animal 6,000 years ago and go for all the process of intelligence that he came in 6,000 years. There's beauty in there. We live in a world now with cell phone and television and all kinds of different things because it's a big flower. Intelligence is a big flower in the understanding. It's marvelous to see it. So we look at ourselves and we say, boy, we accomplished a lot. We accomplished a lot from the beginning of man until now. And you see, this is where all the flowers of intelligence is, the great invention, the great power of what we have inside of ourselves to come in the understanding of the world that's to come. We're going to have better. We're going to have a better world. And we're going to have a noble destiny by mankind. Mankind will have to be born with a new heart to understand this great power inside of ourselves. What is this power inside? It's our spiritual value. That's what it is. Now, we have lived the flesh for 6,000 years and that made marvelous change inside of ourselves from living in the wicked to living in the house that we live today. We must come to understand that the power of the use of the great power of what we are is in spirit. Now, we're going to learn something else in the next couple of millennium. We're going to learn to understand what this book is all about. And to understand what this book is all about, you have to cross over into the new heart to understand. See, man has to have a noble destiny somewhere. You cannot live the way you live now. And the Lord has made this and has planned this for thousands of years to bring, you know, the noble power of a human being to his dignity, to the greatest power that you could ever imagine inside of us coming alive. in the music of intelligence, the music of the scriptures, you come to understand this beautiful music power inside of you. And next thing you know, you begin to understand what the Lord is. If you keep preaching the religion that's out there, it's not going to happen, because these religion has been around for 6,000 years, and they have not developed into a spiritual understanding. The Catholic Church don't have anything spiritual about them. It's just a teaching of flesh on flesh, and it does not bring the power to understand the glory of intelligence. It does not give man a noble destiny. We're just about to kill each other right now, and it's killing all over the place, because our animal has not been taught to understand and love. You don't have that power in the world right now. Love is not part of the understanding. You see, love, the Levi that's inside of us, the 12 sons of Jacob, Levi is love. And it has 3 sons. It has justice, fairness, and unity. We have to learn to be just with one another. We have to be learned to have justice on one another. And you have to learn to unite the world, not separate it and divide it. Go ahead, Rita.
Later I passed by, and when I looked at you and saw that you were old enough for love, I spread the corner of my garment over you and covered your nakedness. I gave you my solemn oath and entered into a covenant with you, declares the sovereign Lord, and you became mine.
You got to understand that what love is here. It's so powerful inside of us. The great power of the Spirit that we have inside of ourselves is to look at another human being, and you have to call him your equal. You cannot call it less than your equal. If the American, lone knife would have looked at the Indian as their equal, they wouldn't have did what they did. And if, the white man would have looked at the black the way, in justice and fairness, they would not did what they did. But if you don't learn from the past, if you don't learn from the stupidity that comes in the understanding of stupidity, how can you understand the power of the Spirit? The Spirit is a spiritual understanding that comes from this great power that we have from love. And when you bring that into the understanding of this great reality of what we are, God is the truth. And you have to go through that truth to get to where we're going in the noble destiny of a human being. Unless we come. God said, I'm going to give you a new heart to live with. And that new heart is going to be inside of you, and you're going to be able to love people with it. It's not going to be the old love of the old world. You see, we're coming into the seven millennium of time that man has received the power of the Spirit of the Lord. And now we have to look, this is the day of Sabbath, where people has to change their understanding. And you look at the world and you say, boy, the world is changing for the world. I mean, how can it be? Because of what happened with the people that teaches religion. They don't teach the power of the Spirit. If they were to speak the power of the Spirit, we would be in a different world right now. But you see what happened? God has made that plain. So we can see ourselves in the stupidity that we live by today. You're going to see that the great power of a human being is just as ignorant as an ox, because he does not rise above his animal to understand the other side of the animal, to understand the spiritual wisdom that's inside of him. There's a spiritual value inside each one of us that comes in the understanding of what we are. It's not something about Jesus or the New Testament or it's anything about, it's not a question of religion. It's a question of human understanding that we have inside of our soul that can grow if we put it to work. God is the truth. You see, we did not cut our cord from the baby that we were born in the animal. We have to rise in the understanding and cut the cord and start coming to live above the animal of a human being. You got to come to understand that this is not the way it's going to be in the future. The future is coming, and the world is coming, and the new power of the new world is coming. And whatever it is out there that people think right now will not be there yesterday any more than it was there 200 years ago. What was believed then is not believed now. And it's not going to be like that in a couple of years like that. And they say, well, we're not going to be around in 200. Yes, you are. Life is everlasting. And I did explain that before on this show here, that we live 7 times in 1,000 years. We come back to life 7 times in 1,000 years because our life is for everlasting. And you have to learn from one lifetime to bring it over to the next lifetime so we can come to understand the power of yourself and the reason of this great glory of intelligence that we live by. Go ahead, Rita, read some more.
I bathe you with water and wash the blood from you and put ointments on you. I clothe you with an embroidered dress and put leather sandals on you. I dressed you in fine linen and covered you with costly garments.
Okay. I bathed you with water. Water's reality. You got to translate each. Once you understand the key word, you begin to understand the scriptures. Water's reality. I bathed you with reality. You have to come to reality to understand God. There's no way out. There's no way in the understanding. You can love Jesus all you want, and you can be a Jesus lover. You can be a Muslim lover. You can be all that you want. But unless you come to understand the Lord your God and understand the power of the Lord your God, you cannot understand the glory of intelligence that we have. You see, what we have is the music. You see, we were brought with fine linen. Fine linen means that you were created with a great spiritual value. You were created with the greatest power of what we call the understanding of the above. We were created with that. Now, it doesn't mean that we still have it after 6,000 years, but you got to come to understand that the power that we have inside of ourselves is the glory of this intelligence that we were created with. God gave you with the finest clothes. In other words, if you take inside yourself the glory of the music of the heart, you can begin to understand the new world. The new world is not like the old world. You're not going to think like the old world. You're not going to think like one man, one woman for a lifetime. You're not going to think like that. You're going to think in different way of understanding. In the freedom of Joshua, the book of Joshua, where you have to destroy all the king inside your soul to understand the power of the new age. The new age is the power to understand the glory of intelligence where God lives inside this great glory of what we are inside of ourselves. You know, you got to understand that God is the truth. So if you understand that God is the truth, then you have to understand that the truth is inside of you. That's these feelings that you have inside of you. And if you want to live by them, you can learn to understand them. And once you learn to understand them, you become a person of truth with values from the truth, not value from the earth. See, that's what they tell you there. Your father lived with moral, and your mother lived with rules. Now the new world is something else. You come and understand with an understanding of spiritual value inside yourself. The music of this power that's inside your soul come to be understood by the glory of this intelligence that you have inside yourself to succeed with. See, what happened to the world is has not succeeded. You know why? Because we teach the same thing over and over and over again. The New Testament has a few parables, and they keep on using there, the Catholic Church, you know, the born-again Christian, but they don't use the power that comes from the Scriptures itself. You see, they don't translate them. So it's a storybook. It's not the truth. The truth, the truth is a value inside of ourselves to live with and to understand. You see, it has to make sense in order to be the truth. But if you believe anything that doesn't make sense, you fill your spirit with this power of intelligence that makes no sense. Next thing you know, you believe, oh, I believe in Jesus. I believe in this. I believe that marriage, had baby without, the sperm of a man. I believe in all kinds of stuff that was written in the Bible. But that's not the point. The point is to understand what does make sense to a human being. That's what the truth is. It's not what makes the sense to the Bible. It's what makes the sense to a human being. We have a soul that determines the truth with the reality of the truth, not by the understanding of scriptures that is written in the glory of a human intelligence. Go ahead, Rita, read some more.
I adorned you with jewelry. I put bracelets on your arms and a necklace around your neck. And I put a ring on your nose, earrings on your ears, and a beautiful crown on your head.
Now, okay, let me explain that. It's very important. This is extremely important. I put bracelets on your arm. These are not the bracelets that you put on your arm now. This is the spiritual power. What you do with your hand. You do with your hand the great power of yourself. You put a hearing on your ears. You try to hear the truth. The truth is a hearing inside of you. You try to understand. You got a ring in your nose. That means that you can smell the truth and you can smell the great power of the truth. You know, on your tongue you have the power to speak. And when you understand the truth, you cannot go and say, well, this part here, I don't understand, but I believe it. You can't do that. You have to believe what makes sense inside of you, and you have to come to understand that the religion of the real true God is the truth. And you cannot go by outside that truth and say, well, geez, I want to be a Christian, I want to be a Muslim, I want to be this. That's not what the power of Scriptures is. Power of Scriptures is to be able to be a person on your own. Self-learning, self-understanding, self-control. The great power of the great son Simeon, son of Jacob. You got to come to understand the 12 sons of Jacob inside yourself. You got to understand that the power there, the glory of intelligence, to understand that what is the truth? It's the music of the heart. And if it doesn't make sense to the heart, don't believe it. Go ahead, Rita.
So you were adorned with gold and silver. Your clothes were of fine linen and costly fabric and embroidered cloth. Your food was fine flour, honey, and olive oil. You became very beautiful and rose to be a queen, and your fame spread among the nations on account of your beauty. Because of the splendor I had given you, made your beauty perfect, declares the sovereign Lord.
You gotta understand, God has made our spirit so powerful, so glorifying, so understanding, and yet we throw our spirit to the stupidity and the ignorance of religion on earth. You know, God is not on the side of religion, let me tell you that. If God was on the side of religion, I mean, then you would say, well, I'm saved and I'm not saved. You see, the born-again Christian, that they're saved by the blood of Jesus. They don't even understand what the blood means in the Bible. They have no other clue. But you see, they preach lies, and they tell people to believe lies. And if you don't believe that, you're going to hell, you're going to burn in. There's no such thing as a fake hell and a fake heaven. The heaven is here, I tell you. You have to come to understand the heaven inside your heart. That's the real heaven. And the real hell is also over there, too. Because if you live life according to the animal of the earth, you live a hell on earth because you're not understanding. It's like this great being, you will create it with the glory of all these things that he's telling you here. You had the finest linen, the finest bracelets, the finest this, the finest that. And yet you throw your spirit to the ground like an animal. Come, understand this power of what God has created inside of each one of us, and understand where we stand with that glory of intelligence that we live inside of ourselves. If God is the truth, why should we change the truth to the lies that these people are telling you? You know, you have to learn to think for yourself. You cannot think about what other people tell you to think. You have to think of what you feel inside yourself. The feelings of human understanding that's inside of you is the feeling that is the truth. And if you go outside that feelings to understand the truth, you commit adultery. It's the adultery of the mind, the adultery of the wife, the adultery that makes no sense, and you believe that. So, the born-again Christian telling me the other day, I mean, I tell you, the trouble is you have no faith. I have faith, but I have faith in the truth. You know, I don't have faith in all this garbage that you guys believe in, but I have faith in what makes sense inside my heart. You know, I don't go out trying to convince people of what I do here. I just bring over here to tell you what is the understanding of these scriptures, so you can come to understand that everything that matches here matches there. It's part of the scriptures. Okay, read some more.
But you trusted in your beauty and used your fame to become a prostitute. You lavished your favors on anyone who passed by, and your beauty became his. You took some of your garments to make gaudy high places where you carried on your prostitution.
Okay, let me explain prostitution here. You understand that this is like the book of Revelation talk about the great prostitute, you know, the great big city on the top. You see, a prostitute is to believe everything that people tell you. See, this is a spiritual understanding. Let's say that you believe what other people tell you. You don't make no sense for yourself. So you destroy yourself into prostitution because your spirit has no power to understand the level of intelligence. So what you understand in the level of intelligence, you don't understand the power of what you should learn for yourself. You throw it to somebody else so you can prostitute yourself in the feelings of somebody else's understanding. You have to make up your own mind. What is the truth inside of you? The truth has to make sense inside that feeling inside of you. Otherwise, it's not going anywhere. The truth is the power to understand this great glory of intelligence that we live by. This truth is what makes sense. It's the common sense of our intelligence, it's the reality of our intelligence, and it makes sense inside of us. And every time we understand the truth, we worship God. This is what worshiping God is. Worshiping God is understanding the power inside of ourselves to understand what we feel. If we feel the truth. Now, you're going to have an event in your life. You raise children, and the children you raise, you know what I mean, comes to you and say, well, I got to teach them the way of life. This is not true. You don't have to teach anybody nothing. You can teach yourself to be the understanding of yourself. The children will learn from themselves, and the great power will come. And if you try to bust up their understanding, you destroy. I see so many kids out there that hate their parents because their parents is trying to mold them into what they were. And they don't really understand what they were because they forgot about it. The great power is to be able to understand the truth of this glory of intelligence that we live by. To understand this glory of this great power that we have inside of ourselves, of trying to mold our children the way we were when we did the worst thing that they do because we don't understand what they're doing. You got to understand that every generation comes with the same glory of intelligence that you have. And if you believe in the intelligence that the Lord has placed inside humanity, there's no problem. Because whatever you learn in life, they will learn in life. You don't have to be a person that teaches everything to everybody and make sure that everybody, treats you as a martyr or a great power. You live inside yourself for the glory of this intelligence that you are. God, who is the truth inside of you, is also the truth inside of your children and the people around you. So why should you make yourself a martyr over everybody else when inside yourself there's the same thing inside everybody else? So you got to come to understand that this truth. Now, if a person don't want to hear the truth, you don't have to tell them anything. It's not your responsibility. That's up to the Lord. It's up to the Lord, and great power. Read some more.
You also took the fine jewelry I gave you, the jewelry made of my gold and silver, and you made for yourself male idols and engaged in prostitution with them. And you took your embroidered clothes to put on them, and you offered my oil and incense before them. Also the food I provided for you, The fine flour, olive oil, and honey I gave you to eat. You offered as fragrant incense before them. That is what happened, declares the sovereign Lord.
You got to come to understand that the power here is within you and each one of us. See, I come over here to try to make you understand the Bible into a spiritual way. This is my own intention. I know that there's a truth inside each one of us. And this truth that lives inside of us is the power that we all have together. You see, if one person has the truth and you try to translate that into the other person, you might hurt them. Try to understand for yourself what you have for yourself. All these garments that the Lord has given us, all these features that we have inside of our soul, everybody else has them. All we have to do is open our heart to them. Now, I'm not here to convince anybody that I'm right and everybody else is wrong in the world. I'm over here to tell you that I have learned this book. And I have learned it through my spiritual value. I didn't go to school to learn this book. I understood it with the garment that the Lord has given me, and all the bracelets and the earring and all the things that the Lord has given me. That's how you learn the scriptures. You learn to open your heart to what makes sense in the reality of truth. For the purpose of the truth, what God does to a human being is to bring the truth to this power that we have inside of ourselves, to understand the glory of intelligence. God, who is the truth, lives inside of our soul and tells us what we need to do. You see, what happened is our children has been raised by the understanding of the parents. And then they disagree with the parents and they go straight, and then next thing you know, they don't make no sense. It's up to each one of us to let your children learn from himself the truth that the God has made for him. He's no different than we are. We're all the same. And I tell you that your children can come to you and tell you things that you never understood yourself, because they have the new generation inside of them. It's something that from, you know, me, I'm a part of the baby boomer, the 1940s, so, you know, I'm way out of whack with the new time. But the thing is, the great power to be able to understand that our children comes from us in the same matter that we are from. Go ahead, read some more,
And you took your sons and daughters, whom you bore to me, and sacrificed them as food to the idols. Was your prostitution not enough? You slaughtered my children and sacrificed them to the idols. In all your detestable practices and your prostitution, you did not remember the days of your youth, when you were naked and bare, kicking about in your blood.
You understand the prostitution of religion here, the prostitution that people try to teach you. You see, if it was the power to understand the scriptures with the truth, would be in religion, but it's not in religion. What's inside religion right now is the power to understand something of a fantasy world. They want to talk to you about a heaven, you know, that you're going to be flying with Jesus all around there, and you're going around the sun like a little idiot, you know what I mean? And that's what heaven is for them. It's a mist of understanding. It's the power of the loss of soul. And then they say, well, the other side is hell, you know, so we can go burn in this. This is the fake power. The scriptures talk about these things because they want you to know that if you don't believe in the truth, you don't believe in the power of the truth, you're going to live in this hell. And your life is going to be here in hell on earth. You're going to have all kinds of billions. You're going to have all kinds of stuff against you. You're going to have all kinds of disease that you can't control, because the power is from you not to believe in the one true God. The great power to love the Lord your God is to see the understanding of this great power of what we are inside of ourselves. God, who is the truth, is the power of that truth. Now, if you believe what these people are teaching you, you're not part of the understanding of what is real in the reality of truth. The great power to understand in the truth is to love in the great power of what we are inside of our soul. God is the truth for the power of the truth, but you got to understand that what you live inside your soul is for the glory of intelligence. Go ahead, Rita.
Woe! Woe to you, declares the sovereign Lord. In addition to all your wickedness, you built a mount for yourself and made a lofty shrine in every public square. At the head of every street, you built your lofty shrines and degraded your beauty, offering your body with increasing promiscuity to anyone who passed by. You engage in prostitution with the Egyptians, your lustful neighbors, and provoked me to anger with your increasing promiscuity.
Well, I tell you, this is complicated, but it's beautiful. You know, you have church in every corner of the street, and big, huge cathedral building in every city, and you have all kinds of different things. They don't teach the truth. So what good is it? If they were to teach the truth, they would teach the reality of that truth. They would teach how life works on earth. See, they teach something that doesn't work on earth. It doesn't work. You know, like their false marriage and their false this and false that. It doesn't work because it's not part of the truth. You know, the truth is a feeling inside of yourself, a freedom that you live inside yourself to believe for yourself. And this is not what they teach you. They bring a role model and they try to fit everybody into that role model, and that's not the way people think and feel. The great power is to be able to understand yourself in the glory of this intelligence that we're giving by the great Lord of all lords, the God that comes inside of our soul to bring the feelings to the reality of truth. Unless you understand the reality of truth, you cannot cross over to that side of the world. You've got to come to the understanding of the basis of intelligence that we live by. Why is the church has all these priests, you know what I mean, you know, molesting children all over the world? You know, I mean, you're talking about 5-10 million kids that were molested. For what? Because the power, they changed the course of life. They took the course of life that was inside of a human being in his sexuality, and they told him, you can't have a woman in your bed. If you can't have a woman in your bed, you break in the great power of what you are inside yourself. You know, a decent man has to have someone, you know, to make love to, because we are made from love. So if you don't, then he's going to do the children, and the children are going to learn falsely again. You see, every time that you bust up the understanding of the firm power of what we are inside of ourselves for the glory of this intelligence that we live by, you break the cycle. And if you break the cycle, then you say, well, geez, the priest could not have, the man himself could not abstain to the power of the church. Well, no, it was the church that was wrong. The church that you know, made people vow of all kinds of chastity, of all kinds of different things that was not in the human spirit. And you broke that by destroying the glory of his intelligence inside themselves, because they were created to make love. You said you can't make love because it's a sin. You destroyed the very power of what you live by. You were created by a God that gives you all these bracelets and all these things and these fine linen and everything else, and somebody came along and told you you can't do that. You see, that's what happened to this world. This is what happened. Why is this world so much in disarray now? Why is this world that people take guns and go shoot people all over the place because they can't stand themselves? They can't stand because they were taught what they're not. You see, you got to understand that what you are inside yourself, you got to preach on that. Try to make people understand that you are a human being of feelings. And if you don't live to your feelings and live to the integrity of those feelings, you're gonna mess up. This is what happened to the Catholic Church. Next thing you know, you got a big scandal on yourself, a huge scandal that they can't fix. Why? Because they broke the very fundamental barrier of the law itself. And if you break the very fundamental of the law of nature, you're breaking what you were created with. You destroy the good thing that the Lord has made inside of you. Lord, it's not what you think. It's different. It's a human feeling inside of ourselves. And the human feeling of intelligence has common sense. And the human feeling that we have the truth. And the human feeling, we have reality that teaches us to control yourself with these three things. Okay, read some more, right? Read them.
I'm going to skip a little bit here.
Okay.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
You adulterous wife, you prefer strangers to your own husband. Every prostitute receives a fee, but you give gifts to all your lovers, bribing them to come to you from everywhere for your illicit favors. So in your prostitution, you are the opposite of others. No one runs after you for your favors. You are the very opposite, for you give payment, and none is given to you.
See, what are you're trying to live in the prostitute because you're trying to live outside yourself and try to understand spiritual value in what the mind thinks should be. You see, these religions teach what their mind tells them, the loss and gain. If you do this, you'll have that. If you don't do this, you won't be able to get there. You see, this is loss and gain, and that's all it is. But the value of intelligence is to be able to take your spiritual value and live with them. Live according to your feelings that the Lord has made you. And believe me, you know, I have experienced that in my life. And I know that when you do things accordingly to your feelings, you will do good in life. You will not hurt no one. You will not do wrong to no one. And you will not do anything to hurt anyone. Everything that you're going to do in life is going to be part of you to understand this glory of this intelligence that we stand by, for God to understand the truth. You see, God knows what the truth is, but he has to convert it inside of us. And we have to listen to what he's saying. You see, if you take a human being and you say to it, oh, you're going to become a priest here, and you will not be able to have a woman for the rest of your life. Now, how do you think that this person that has already been rejected to become, and he wants to be a priest because he loves the idea of being glorified by other people, so he's going to try to live like that. But it's not going to work because it's not what he was created with. He was not created with against himself. He was created within himself. See, that's the difference between what is a prostitute and what is not a prostitute. You prostitute yourself to believe something that somebody taught you. Try to understand what you were created to be inside your soul. God is the truth. And if you don't go by that truth, then you have to go by the lies of the world. And when you go by the lies of the world, then you have to live according to these lies. And this is not the way you were created to be. God is the great power. Read some more, Rita. It's a long thing. Yeah. I don't think we're going to be able to do the whole thing, but you know, we're almost out of time there. But the thing is, we've got to come to the understanding of this great scriptures that was written for us, so we can come to understand between adultery and prostitution in the way of thinking. Good.
Therefore, you prostitute, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Because you poured out your wealth and exposed your nakedness in your promiscuity with your lovers, and because of all your detestable idols, and because you gave them your children's blood, therefore I am going to gather all your lovers with whom you found pleasure, those you loved as well as those you hated. I will gather them against you from all around and will strip you in front of them, and they will see all your nakedness.
See, once you turn spiritual now, when a person turns spiritual, he becomes something different. You become something that the world hasn't got right now. You begin to understand this great powerful of what people think we are. You see, Okay, we got to come to understand that this is the glory of the Lord. The Lord has made us into an understanding of the reality that we're created with. Religion took that and changed that into what the mind taught the reality of what we came from. So we wanted to raise above the animals and said, no, no sex for you. And if you want to be a priest, no sex for you. If you want to be something else, no, you can't eat all the food that you want. You can't do all the things that you want. You know, you cannot live by your feelings. You have to live by the rules of the church. So what happened to us? Why is this world in disarray now? Why is the world destroyed with the stupidity and the ignorance that has created you with? Because God, who is the truth, has come to understand the power of this truth. And because he created us with that truth. And if he created us with that truth, why did we have to go against him? Why did the church has to come and say, well, we're going to worship Jesus in front of God? When the first commandment of our Lord tells you there's only one God. There's only one God. Why do you have to make another one for? Oh, well, we got to. You don't have to. You don't have to make Jesus God. You don't have. God is a spiritual power inside of ourselves. He's not a man. He's not created on the cross. The injustice of what happened to, in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago is what was going to happen to the world. The great injustice of the great persecution. And they say, well, I'm saved. And they say, well, I'm saved because I believe in Jesus. You're not saved because you don't believe in. You see, that's a lot of baloney. This is what the preacher are telling you. They're trying to save their butt, trying to understand the scriptures. They don't really want to understand the scripture. They want to save their butt. They want to be ahead again. They were the best over here. They were the general. They were the court lawyers. They were the court judge. And they were everything else in here. And they said, well, geez, I mean, we've been in everything, and all the power that we have in arrogance is inside of us. And now we want to be in the next world. We want to be part of the best over there, too. It's not going to work that way. The people that went through the great persecution. Okay, read the rest of that. I don't know if you can read the rest of that.
No, I can't. It does too much.
Okay, read it a little bit more, and then we'll call it quick for today. Okay.
Because you did not remember the days of your youth, but engaged me with all these things, I will surely bring down on your head what you have done, declares the sovereign Lord. Did you not add lewdness to all your other detestable practices?
Okay, I'm going to put a little bit onto that. All the detestable practices. To change everything that the Lord has said. God made 10 commandments. We have to change that. You see, why can't we accept what the Lord has made? Why do we have to make a new teaching out of it? Why can't we just look at the spiritual power of this? Because we're not smart enough to understand it, so we did not come to understand the great power of this. Well, I think we're running out of time now, and I want to say to you, people out there that listen to me, I mean, I'm not the smartest man in the world, but I come over here to tell you of what I have learned in my life. I don't preach nobody. I tell you what's to make sense to me. And what makes sense to me is what makes sense what the Lord has placed inside of me as the common sense of my intelligence. That's all I have, and that's all I can give you. But try to understand that the Bible is a spiritual book. It's not a book about the flesh. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you. God bless you all. I'll see you next time on the Sea of Glass.